Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Daily Triple. That's your no shit gaming news video. 3 news stories in one video with zero faff. Ubisoft is having a really great year so far. It's got 2 huge games coming out in a few months and all the previews seem quite promising. But there's only one problem. The company is an absolute fucking shit show. Over the past few weeks, numerous reports of sexual harassment and misconduct have been sent against the company with more than a few sinister implications. This all started as a new wave of #MeToo allegations swept across the industry against various games journalists and developers. Many senior executives at Ubisoft have come under intense scrutiny following multiple allegations ranging from general sexist behavior to outright assault, and the company as a whole has been criticized for covering it all up. Now, there's a lot to unpack around this whole story, which is far too much for just one segment in a daily triple, so I'm going to go into more detail about it in this week's podcast. Brace yourself, it's probably going to get rough. But there is one point in particular that I'd like to talk about that Bloomberg's Jason Schreier brought up in his new lengthy article on the topic. He mentions how Ubisoft executive Serge Hascoët, in addition to numerous other allegations against him specifically, said games with female leads don't sell. I'm sure Lara Croft, Samus Aran, Aloy, Senua, and Ellie would all have something to say about that. Most people don't actually give a shit about whether a character is a man or a woman, they just want them to be interesting and fun to play as. No one really cares about strong male characters or strong female characters, they just want strong characters. It's clear from playing the game that Cassandra was meant to be the main character in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Alexios was an afterthought. Apparently, that exactly was the case according to 4 people who worked on the game, and Alexios was only added to appease Hascoët out of fear that he may change or even cancel the project. A similar situation supposedly happened with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which starred dual protagonists Jacob and Evie Fry in Victorian London. According to 3 people who worked on that project, the first script had the Fry twins sharing equal screen time, but the end product was dominated by Jacob. Similarly, with the ancient Egyptian Assassin's Creed Origins, partway through the game, protagonist Bayek was meant to be killed off, and then the player would assume control of his wife Aya. Sticking female characters in games for the sake of diversity is pretty transparent to gamers, and they will call it out when they see it, but it's funny to see how many times developers tried to get even one female protagonist in the game before being watered down or cut entirely. So let's take a quick look at the numbers regarding games with female leads. The Tomb Raider games franchise as a whole has sold over 75 million copies across multiple entries, albeit of variable quality. For Samus Aran from the Metroid game, she has sold 18.23 million copies worldwide as of March this year, which is particularly impressive considering she is a Nintendo exclusive. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the most successful new IPs of this generation, with Aloy becoming an icon for Sony and selling over 10 million copies worldwide, and that's just with one game on one platform. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is one of the best titles in that weird space between indie and AAA, and by June 2018 had sold over 1 million copies, which is incredible for a game of that scale. And Ellie recently led The Last of Us Part 2 to become the fastest selling PS4 exclusive ever, selling over 4 million copies in 3 days, making it the biggest launch of any game in 2020. The major thing all these games had in common was that they had interesting characters. The fact that they were female characters is irrelevant to most rational players. But you see, that's the crux of this whole thing. Serge Hascoët clearly isn't a rational man and is instead a total piece of shit, at least if the claims against him are true. All of this is alleged, of course. Outside of that, the state of Ubisoft's current output is in large part down to Hascoët's creative decisions as Chief Creative Officer. Past few years of Ubisoft games have all been the same thing repackaged because Hascoët said so. That's part of the reason CEO Yves Guillemot had supposedly restructured the editorial team to move key decision making away from Hascoët and diversify the creative output. I'm surprised that Ubisoft didn't blame their poor sales from last year on having female characters in them because, after all, female-led games just don't sell well, right girls? Again, I'm going to be talking more about Ubisoft's various allegations in this week's podcast, so oh boy, that's gonna be fun. And next up, despite its simple premise, Rocket League is still one of the most popular multiplayer games around. Now, 5 years after launch, developer Psyonix has announced that Rocket League is going free to play. The situation was explained in a blog post which said that the core gameplay experience of driving rocket-powered matchbox cars to win a football game will remain intact. This new move will coincide with the game's release on the Epic Games Store, which will feature full cross-platform support. Anyone who bought the game prior to this free-to-play move will receive some free DLC as compensation, including all Rocket League branded DLC released before free-to-play, established 20XX title that displays the first year you played Rocket League, 200 plus common items upgraded to Legacy quality, Golden Cosmos boost, Dicey Oro wheels, Huntress player banner, and the Faded Cosmos boost. All inventory progress made since launch will be carried over to the free-to-play version, and cross-progression across all platforms will be introduced with the update along with revamped tournaments. Moving free-to-play is a great move for newcomers but can sting a bit for existing players who actually paid for the game in the 5 years since it released. However, the free loot and cosmetics may tide over some players as the game has extensive customization options for your cars, and facing a whole host of new players should be a good thing, assuming the servers don't just outright explode. But a bunch of customization junk isn't quite as good as getting a free game, is it? So I guess it's just up to you if you think it's a fair deal. The more controversial part of this decision is that the game will be delisted from Steam once going free to play, meaning that the only way to play the game on PC if you don't already own it will be to suffer through the Epic Games Store. If you already own Rocket League or buy it before it's delisted, you'll still be able to play it through Steam, but if not, you'll have to go to Epic. Epic has been poaching exclusives for the past year, and while it has proved to be an effective business model, many gamers still hate the store, and for good reason. It is fundamentally an inferior platform to Steam in terms of features like reviews, wish lists, cloud saves, and more, but if you don't use any of that stuff, it's not really an issue. Personally, I'm kinda glad to see the game going free to play for the sole reason that it means more people get to enjoy it and play it. I rarely play the game now anyway, and only spent around 15 quid on it, but I've had hours of fun with it despite being totally awful, so this isn't that much of a loss to me. What do you think? Do you hate games going free to play after launch and you paid full price, or is this 5 years on and a great way to get new players into the game? And finally, while many of us have been enjoying Sucker Punch's excellent recreation of Japanese cinema in Ghost of Tsushima, footage of another game that was in development has been leaked. The 11 minutes of footage, including gameplay, shows off a game seemingly called Prophecy, which is set within a medieval port with similar visuals to A Plague Tale: Innocence. Prophecy seems to be a very stealth-based game that certainly appears to share some of its bones with Ghost of Tsushima, as it has very similar traversal and combat. According to the leak, which originally appeared on Reset Era, because of course it did, the footage is from a vertical slice developed by the team sometime in 2015, a year after infamous Second Son was released. Naturally, much of the footage has been scrubbed from the internet, and what is out there isn't of the highest quality, but whatever this game is, it could have been very interesting. It has presumably been cancelled since Ghost of Tsushima has been Sucker Punch's big project, but it may turn out to be something eventually. But I'm really enjoying Ghost of Tsushima anyway, so I'm glad we still got that, even if this other one does look pretty cool. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this no shit format, go ahead and give the video a like to give it a boost, hit subscribe and the bell if you want to stay up to date on all future installments, toss a coin to your YouTuber over at patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. I've been Henry Cooper, that's all for today, bye for now.